Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. We'll be beginning at exactly 2:15 p.m. Karibuni sana. Request us to keep our microphones off and our videos. And at some point we will get time for Q&A. So kindly switch off your video, switch off your microphone so that we don't interfere with the quality of the presentation. Mr. Suji, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ruth. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I was asking if Rachel is already here and whether she can try to present from her end.
I don't see her yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but she will be joining us shortly.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Maybe you can alert her so that before we begin, she can try to present.
Yes.
And also test her microphone so that we don't have hitches.
I'll do that shortly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for those who are joining us. We will start the webinar at exactly 2:15. We are now 7 minutes away, but you are welcome.
Good afternoon, Ruth. Rachel is in the room now.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon. Let's see if Ruth can cue you in, Rachel, so that we have the connection right. Ruth, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Perhaps Rachel, because you have the presentation right, you can try to present from your end, and then after that we will begin officially.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Yeah, it's visible.
Yes, I think you just go to the
Presentation
first slide and let it remain there. Yes. Thank you so much. Let it remain there because we don't have any other presenter.
Sorry, there was an issue with my speaker, so I couldn't hear you. But is the presentation visible on your side?
Yes, on my side, it's okay. Perhaps, Omeno, you can confirm.
Yes, it's okay. It's visible.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you for the feedback.
You may want to make it into a slide presentation, maybe, just so it's bigger, but I think it's good.
On my side, it's on presentation mode,
Okay.
and I'm switching between the slides. Is it visible for you?
Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you for the feedback.
Good afternoon, Mr. Suji.
Afternoon, Daktari. How are you?
Good. Good afternoon, Bwana Kariuki. Steve?
Good afternoon to you.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that we are on time. I got late on a long meeting, but I appreciate Dr. Rachel and your team so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm happy to be here. I missed the other presentation, but I got a very good report. I was in the US, Rachel, so I'm happy that today I'm here. Thank you so much, students and colleagues, for joining this webinar by our partners. They did so well in their January presentation that we said, please come back again and continue with the series. And today's talk is around the theory and the practice of community engagement, lessons from Kibera Slum Upgrading Project. What a timely talk and the presentation for our faculty and students, doctoral, master students. This is a very relevant, timely talk, and so we'll be starting shortly. And I see we are almost heading to 40 in numbers. Try to reach out to the people in your network, in your WhatsApp networks, and try to say the webinar is on, our team is ready. So let's all log in and let's enjoy the presentation by our team. I don't know whether Madam Gladys or Pillow is in the call. Gladys or Pillow. welcome Dr. Jack Nakelo. I don't know whether somebody can see Dr. Patrick Okanga. Welcome, Dr. Duncan.
Yes, I'm around, Doctor. We are fine. You joined us.
Thank you so much. Karibu Sana from Nakuru. You'll be our moderator during the QA. And Dr. Kelo will be giving us a vote of thanks. And so I appreciate us taking time. I know we are busy, things are going on, but I appreciate each one of us, especially our doctoral students, Daima, Della, Dennis, Betha, Ayub. Remember, this is your webinar. And so as we begin the presentation, our banners, please listen carefully. Ariko, Karibu, Atem, Karibu Sana, doctoral student, Avala. Try to reach out to those who are not yet in to say, please, the webinar is on. Our guest speakers are ready. Judith Siambe, welcome. Kabuchi Joyce, welcome. Ocheng, our Daktari there. Penina, try to reach out to those within your networks and try to say, please, we are on. Join so that we can begin together. We'll be our doctoral student Eduardo from Angola is here. So try to check who is in your class or in your network and they are not yet logged in, and say, hey, we are on, please log in so that we can hit 100 and participate in this together. There is a lot of research. It's in the post-university from Eduardo, Dr. Kellon, Dr. Patrick, and our other fellows here that looks in the slums. And therefore, this is a presentation that we are going to really relate to today. Okay, so I'm looking to invite somebody to open for us with a word of prayer. Our dean is not around. Our HOD is attending to some business, and so no worries, they'll be joining us later. But in the meantime, I'm waiting for 8 people to hit 50 as we prepare to pray. Frida from Embu, are you able to open for us with a word of prayer? Frida.
Yes, Daktari.
Go ahead.
Father, in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, to come before you this afternoon, we want to worship and honor your holy name for the gift of this day. Even as we partake in this webinar today, we pray for wisdom, knowledge, and guidance. May you be with each one of us. May you help us to grasp what is important, Jehovah Lord, even as we continue with our studies. Bless the facilitators, bless even our lecturers, Lord. May you be with them and may you continue to see them all through in whatever they do. We pray this shortly, believing and trusting in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you so much. I will request that we, as our tradition, we just mute our cameras so that we can leverage on less interruptions and enjoy the presentation. But just to give our presenters a humble time, I will now invite Mr. Suji to introduce himself, to introduce the team. By the way, Mr. Suji is a community representative in the St. Paul's University Institutional and Scientific Ethics Review Committee. The government of Kenya requires ethics review committees to have somebody from the community who represents the community. And so as we sit every month to look at proposals and protocols, Mr. Suji represents the community and their perspectives in our reviews. So welcome, Pastor Suji. Introduce a team, and from there, let's roll out with the presentation. Mr. Suji.
Thank you, Daktari. I'm honored to be here again, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Omeno Suji. I am a researcher and a consultant in the private sector in Kenya, but then I've also been tapped into the Committee for Ethics, and it's been a privilege serving in that space at St. Paul's University. And so overall, one would say I'm in the marketplace, and a lot of things happen in the marketplace. The academia is an excellent component of our larger society, but there are links that need to be created so that the academia finds its real place and makes the maximum contribution to our development work. And this is the second in a series of, I don't know how many engagements we'll be having in St. Paul's University. And in January, we did one, and now in this one, we are doing the second one. And I've come with the same colleagues that we were with, Steve Kariuki. Steve, do you want to just mention briefly who you are, and then Rachel will come in, and then I will take over from there.
Thank you, Mr. Suji, and thank you both faculty at St. Paul's University. I'm happy to be here again at this second webinar that we had an opportunity to participate in. My name is Steve Kariuki. I am the Executive Director of Maji and Ufanisi. This is a local non-governmental organization that has been doing implementing projects and programs in the sector, the water and sanitation sector in Kenya, both in urban areas and rural areas. And we, even mostly in the urban areas, we have concentrated our work in the informal settlements. So the topic today is very relevant, and I welcome you to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Rachel?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor and joy to be here again. I'm Dr. Rachel Czirják. I'm Head of International Developments of the Hungarian Malta. And we've been presented in Kenya since the early 2010s. And Maji and Ufanisi is a strategic partner of ours. So we are very happy to be here and share our experiences with all of you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rachel Czirják. If you can jump to the third slide, I think we'll begin there.
Is it visible on your side?
Not yet. The third. Okay.
Now?
Not yet. It's still stuck on the first.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what's happening because on my side it's on the third one.
Okay. Not a problem. Can we pass the...
Maybe, Rachel, you can first of all close the presentation, then present again.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Yes. Now it's on. Thank you. Excellent. Thanks. I want us to ask a few questions. I won't be long. For me, I just give the introductory part of this conversation, and then the team will take over. Why do we want everybody involved in the decision-making processes in development? And this is a question that not only NGOs are asking, but even multilateral and bilateral donors and governments. They are beginning to ask because of the issues of sustainability, because we are very heavily invested in the development enterprise. I mean, you hear the kind of billions that go into development. Development here, I mean, especially in the social sector. You're providing water, you're providing education, you're providing health, and sometimes to very impoverished communities. And sometimes that money just goes down, and 3 years later, the money is gone, and the effects of it cannot be seen. So those questions are disturbing a lot of people. The second thing that, the second reason I think that we want everyone involved is that education leads to improvement of living standards. And often the academia has been sometimes boxed away at their own corner, where they are not invited into the spaces where conversations about development are taking place. And so more and more across the world, both donors and implementing agencies are beginning to say, how about we get the academia, because the work of academia is research and teaching. Research of necessity calls for documentation. So how about they come in as partners in these enterprises so that they help us to document these things right. So we have agencies now that are saying, we will give you money to do the implementation of a water project, say in Kibera, but we will ask St. Paul's University to do the data collection, the reporting, and lesson learning as that implementation is going on. So we see an opportunity for universities and academia in general to be able to tap into an area like this. And so part of what we are trying to do is to say, can we excite some interest in the academia? But of course, as academia, you also know that often you struggle with where to go for, say, research or internships for your students. And sometimes we have a lot of work going on that students could learn from as we implement projects in the slums or those other places where there's need. So that's the second reason. But the third and final reason I'm going to give, and there could be more, is the situation in the slums especially is very complex. I think it is last time when we were presenting that one of the deans mentioned that for them, slums are usually a disaster waiting to happen. So, and that could be true halfway, but slums are not a disaster waiting to happen. People live there and thrive, by the way, but they are very complex. They are very complex because the interests are not straightforward. You may go in there with, oh, we want to give these people water, but sometimes they'll even ask you, who told you we need water? That's what you saw from the road, and you think that we don't have water here, because there are people there who are already selling them water and would like to keep anything else out. So essentially, when you go into a situation like that, you need to not only study it, but also to be prepared for a pushback. In Kenya, the current conversation, of course, we know is about SHA. It's very current because of politics, but also just because it's a disruptive process. But there are a lot of untruths already being said about SHA, but there are also some truths in the noises that we are hearing. So how do we tell the truths from the untruths? And that is where a development agency or academia can be able to bridge the gap so that the conversation is moderated by knowledge rather than by political statements. So I want us to keep that in mind as we go through our presentation today. Next slide, Rachel. Last week, or last time, I think it's last month, we talked about, Rachel, are you able to give me the next slide, please? We talked about...
It's froze again.
Okay, just do it, not a problem. We're just recapping. Last time we talked about the 3 players that we want to engage with in the development enterprise, especially in the slums. Give me the earlier one. And those were what we call the implementers, who are in our case here is represented by Steve, and possibly a bit by Rachel as well. Then the financiers, people who put their money. And by the way, the development is no longer considered just a social thing. It's now becoming investment. In fact, more donors are now talking about we are investing in this. So we talked about the financier, the academia, and the implementers in our last conversation. So in our conversation today, we are going to be introducing two more players, and that is the government. We will not be able to talk much about the government because they also have a huge role, regulation, policy setting, just that whole of security and all that. But that's for another day. We are going to talk more about that last wheel, the yellow wheel, which represents the beneficiaries, which is now the community. Now, those people are vested maybe more than any of the other four cogs. And the important thing is to be able to say, how do we ensure that everything aligns and is pulling in the direction that we should? So those actors in the development enterprise are part of what we want to talk about today. I'm going to be inviting Rachel to give us the first overview from a theoretical position, because she is an academia in her own right now working for a financier. But we'll also later invite Steve to give us his perspective from the ground. And that's why we called this Kibera, because he has a wealth of experience implementing in Kibera slums in Nairobi, Kenya. So I think I will land it there and ask Rachel to take it from there.
Thank you very much. And as a continuation, I would like to give a theoretical frame to all the field experience that Mr. Kariuki will share with you. And I would like to talk about participation and the connected terms and phrases that you can see in the slides. So participation and its synonyms has been buzzwords, and recently
Sorry, Rachel, I think your slides are frozen again.
Sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
Just, give me a moment to restart it. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is.
Oh, great, thank you very much for the feedback. So participation and all the related synonyms of it has been buzzwords in the international development cooperation system. However, the definition and the concept behind it isn't plain, and what is more, it has changed through the different eras of the history of international development cooperation. However, in order to be able to talk about the effects and potential outcomes of the affected communities, so the beneficiaries' participation in the developmental process, first we need to clarify the related terms. And if we want to group these, all of these expressions here, we can create two groups. One group is related to participation and its synonyms like inclusion and so. And the other, a big group, will contain all the expressions that are explicitly related to the community and different forms of community involvement. And about the relationship of these two terms, it can be said that participation represents the broader category within which different levels can be distinguished based on how and to what extent the stakeholders can engage in the development process. I will show you a lot of models about it. And community-led planning or participatory planning, in turn, is a specific form of participation associated with a particular level of involvement. So the context in which we will investigate is international development, we will focus on developmental project activities related to slum upgrading, as Mr. Kariuki will talk about it. And within this framework, we can identify two main characters during the developmental project. So one of them is the decision makers, the one who holds the power, and the other main character is the community, the affected community, or the beneficiaries on whom the project has a direct effect. And we will investigate their interactions. So it can be said that although participation has been used in the international development programs as requirements since the very beginning of the system, so since the establishment of the international aid system, the first models that investigated its genuine meaning and the forms was published in 1969. And this first model was the Ladder of Citizen Participation by Sherry Arnstein. And
again, Rachel, I think you're frozen.
Great.
Yes, just oh, good. You are
probably what is to say that when we use Google Meet, we don't get to the slide presentation. You just if you put it in slide presentation, it doesn't move.
Oh, so it's froze because of the presentation mode. Okay, so I need to do this way in order to. Okay, so is it visible now for you?
Yeah, the ladder or the circle.
The ladder.
Yeah, the ladder is visible.
Oh, all right. Thank you, and thank you for the feedback because it's important for me so that I know. So the logical frame of this ladder concept is that the higher we stand on the imaginary ladder, the more power decision makers grant citizens in the decision-making process. And I would like to go through very quickly what these different levels mean. So the first category of the participation forms is called non-participation, because these are merely illusory forms of participation when stakeholders are either so-called educated, that's when we can talk about manipulation, or treated, that is therapy, rather than being genuinely prepared to take an active role in development planning or implementation. So in practice, this form of participation occurs when experts seek to gain beneficiary support for a pre-existing development plan. The next category is tokenism, which is the pretense of participation. At this level of participation forms, the beneficiaries got the opportunity to voice their opinions. However, they don't get power in the decision-making process to influence the status quo. So the first level within tokenism is informing, and this level represents the very first step toward genuine social participation, because that is the level when citizens are informed about their rights, responsibilities, and available choices. But at this stage, information flows in a one-way directions from the decision makers, from the one in power, toward the affected community, the beneficiaries. At the next level, which is consultation, the information flows in two-way directions. So at this stage, the local community got the chance to give feedback, to share their opinions. However, there aren't guarantees that their opinions will be taken into consideration during the process. So though they can give feedback, they still don't get power to affect the decision-making process of the developmental project. And placation is the third level within tokenism category. This is the situation when there is a decision-making body, let's call it a committee, and the local community can represent itself. However, they are outnumbered by the decision makers. So placation, an example for placation is when there is a board of 10, a decision-making body, and local community gets 1 or 2 seats from it, so they don't have real power. And at the top of the ladder, we can find the citizen power category. And the sixth level within it is partnership. So I would like to emphasize this one because that means the basis for community-led or participatory planning. So at this level, local community isn't only participating in the flow of information, but at this level, power is equally distributed between the community and the decision makers. So they have real power to influence the way the development project goes. So the community has meaningful influence over the developmental process. And delegated power is when there is a decision-making body, a board, and the local community has most of the seats in it. And Arnstein defines citizen control when there is no intermediary between the affected community and the necessary resources. The impact of Arnstein's work is these three other ladder models visible on your side?
The three ladders, no. That next.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just three. I think if you put it on presentation mode, we might be able to get past that.
It's on presentation mode, so that's why I don't understand what is happening with with the PPT. But
we are okay. Now you are there.
We will go this in this layout. So sorry. So the impact of Arnstein's work is demonstrated by the fact that her ladder model, along with its concept of hierarchical levels, served as a foundation for numerous other models in the subsequent decades. So I just brought you some other examples from later on. And if you are interested in this topic, I would recommend to check out these models. However, at this point, I would like to very quickly summarize Samuel Paul's model, who defined community participation. So he calls not civil participation, but community participation as an active process by which beneficiary groups influence the direction and execution of a development activity. And he distinguished 4 levels, but in other cases you can find like 5 levels in case of Hamdi and Goethert. However, in the model of Mefalopoulos and Tufta, we can find 4 levels, and the names of the different levels are very similar. However, if we take a closer look, we can find some differences between their views. However, they try to explain the very similar thing. So in case of Samuel Paul, first level is information sharing. It's totally the same that we found in Arnstein's model at informing, which is a one-way direction of information flow from the decision makers toward the beneficiaries. Again, consultation is pretty the same as in Sherry Arnstein's model. So the information flows in a two-way direction, because the affected community got the chance to give feedbacks. However, there aren't guarantees that their opinions will be taken into consideration during the process. So they are part of the information flow. However, they don't have decision-making power. Decision-making is the level of partnership in Arnstein's model, if we go back. And it means pretty much the same. So at this point, beneficiary community isn't only part of the information flow, but got real decision-making power to genuinely affect the developmental process. And at the top of the ladder, in case of Samuel Paul's model, it's initiating action, which means that the affected community is empowered, so it's able to initiate the developmental process themselves. And if we want to summarize or synthesize all of these models about participation, we can distinguish these 4 levels with a different name, but it totally means the same as I just described in case of Samuel Paul's model. So in case of first and second levels, community, local community, or the beneficiaries participating only in the information flow, but from the level of partnership or decision making, they get real power to affect the way a development process goes. And at the top of it, we can talk about an active, a proactive community, which is able to initiate developments themselves. So we can see that with the level, with the increase in the levels, the information flow intensifies, as well as decision-making power. And the key level for us, in order to talk about community-led participation, is the partnership or decision-making level. So when local community gets decision-making power, consequently genuinely able to affect the developmental process. So with that in mind, now I would like to continue with community-led development or participatory development or community-led planning. So, which is similar to participation. This term has a lot of related notions, terms, and synonyms, and the definition behind it isn't plain as well. So if you want to define based on the participation models, it can be said that community planning is a method for designing and implementing development activities that actively involves those affected by the issue being addressed, so the affected community itself. And based on the previously discussed models, the specific level of participation it represents is the partnership level. If we just go back here, it's the partnership level. And it means that the beneficiary is not only involved in the flow of information, but has decision-making authority, allowing them to meaningfully influence the planning process as equal partners alongside professional actors. So it's very important that the community is really a partner to the decision makers. Yes, and in order to understand what community-led development or community planning is, I would like to continue with comparing community-led planning with its total opposite, which is called external or expert-led planning, in order to understand it in a more comprehensive way. So from the perspective of the problem development project intends to solve, we can differentiate two types or two ways of planning how a development can go. So first, there is the external or expert-led planning versus the internal or community-led planning, and it shows that which actor leads the developmental process. So in case of the traditional or conventional expert-led development, in the context of slum upgrading, it means that local authorities entrust a professional developer or a group of developers as an external participant who isn't affected by the difficulties directly, to explore the problems and to work out the solutions. The expert can ask the local community for more information through interviews or questionnaires. However, the information is concentrated in the hands of the expert, and the community is just informed about the developmental ideas and solutions. And this is the expert who makes the decisions. And if we just go back to the previous slides that synthesizes the participatory models, if we want to decide what does it mean, what does expert-led or external planning mean from the perspective of participation, we can say that the traditional expert-led planning is on the level of informing or consultation. So if we ask the affected community to give inputs about their like their habits or the difficulties they need to face in the slums, but we will make the decision based on those inputs, based on those information, we can talk about consultation, okay? So no matter how many consultation forms we hold, it will never be participatory planning, because if we don't give them decision-making power, just ask information from them, it will remain on the level of consultation. And as we will see in a few minutes, community-led planning is a learning experience for the participating ones, so for the beneficiaries. And if it's successful, it can enable the community to leap to the next level of the participatory ladder. However, in case of information or informing and consultation, there is a ceiling glass. So in case of informing or in case of consultation, the affected community won't be able to jump to the next level of the participatory ladder. All right, so however, the information is in case of the expert-led planning, the information is concentrated in the hands of the expert or experts, and the local community doesn't have a chance to influence the intervention. So this is the most common method in international development cooperation, despite that inclusion, partnership, and participation have become keywords in the developmental discourse. The basic problem with this approach is its approach itself, the approach of the developers or the experts, who are external actors from the perspective of the problem that the developmental project aims to handle. So the professionals, the experts cannot perceive the problem and local potentials and resources as a local community does. Therefore, the chances that the expert will work out a solution that fits perfectly to the local conditions are very slim. On the other hand, there is the internal or participatory or community planning, which operates with the active attendance of people directly affected by the problem, so the local community or the beneficiaries. In our case, in our example, the slum dwellers themselves, who articulate their problems and work out solutions with the assistance and coordination of a facilitator. So this kind of planning has an expert as well, who is called facilitator. However, facilitator has a totally different role than the expert that works with the traditional expert-led planning model. Because in case of participatory planning, facilitator asks the questions, and by answering these questions, this is the local community who investigates and explores the local problems and also the resources and knowledge and all the resources at their level that can be utilized throughout the problem-solving process. And depending on the project, they can also participate in the implementation as well. So participatory planning can define the real problems because of the perspective of the participating ones, which is the affected community. However, but what is more, participatory planning can be regarded as a common learning process during which the locals can learn new skills like articulating their necessities, lobbying, cooperating with other actors, and so on. So if participatory planning or a community-led planning is successful, it can result in jumping to the next level of the participatory ladder. And the top of the ladder is active community or initiating community, when the community has the power to initiate development themselves. It doesn't mean that they will have all the resources necessary to implement the development. However, they have the power to initiate the development and get in contact with different actors who can help them implementing it. But the most significant difference between the two methods, between internal and external planning, besides the things I've already mentioned, is in their approach, which has very long-term social effects. So expert-led planning is based on shortage. So basically, it examines what is absent locally that will be supplied from the outside. But in this way, the local community becomes passive participant who is dependent upon the donors. So consequently, after the exhaustion of external sources, when the project closes, their conditions become worse, possibly even worse than before the so-called development or the developmental project. In contrast, the participatory planning uses value-based approach, which takes into account the local potentials and opportunities and utilizes them during the problem solving, during the solution. And as a result, a successful participatory planning creates an active community that has the capacity to act and affect its life, its circumstances. So therefore, after the end of the project, when the donors leave, local community will be able to keep on developing their conditions, their lives on their own. And if we go back again to the model synthesis, it means that successful community-led planning results in leaping to the next level of participation when it creates an active community that has the capacity to affect its own life, so to initiate developments. So it can empower them to leap to the next level. And again, in case of external planning that operates with informing or consultation, this upward step doesn't happen. And at this point, I would like to thank you for your kind attention. And after the theoretical introduction, I would give the floor to Mr. Stephen Kariuki, who would share his field experience regarding this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, for that sort of presentation. I think at this stage we have heard about the why we want to get everybody involved, particularly from the community's perspective. We have heard about the theory, about community participation and community-led development. I want to take the audience through the practical side of it. And in this, I'll take you through a case study of a successful project that we implemented, or rather Marginal Ufanisi implemented with other partners in Kibra, which was a slum upgrading project. And then through the presentation, I should be able to elaborate more in terms of the kind of community participation and the strategies that Marginal Ufanisi and other partners used during the implementation of this project, which made it very successful. The case study is about Kibera Water and Sanitation Project. This is a project that was implemented in Kibra towards the later years of the first decade of this millennia, that is from 2007 all the way going to 2011. And the initiative was aimed at improving the access to clean water and sanitation facilities, deal with hygiene issues, and the road network open up Kibra as an informal settlement through a road network, which they did not have that time. The project or the program was funded by UN Habitat and World Bank Cities Alliance and the government of Kenya. And it was a direct component of the Kenya Slum Upgrading Program, popularly known as KENSA, which was a collaborative initiative between the government of Kenya and UN Habitat. And we, as Marginal Ufanisi, we had signed an agreement with the UN Habitat to be the implementing partner of this program. The project was to deliver, it had some deliverables that we were to deliver. We were to upgrade a 2.5 kilometer low volume road. We were to construct 1.8 kilometer stormwater drains. We were to improve on 2 footbridges. We were to construct 7 communal water and sanitation facilities. We were also to do small-scale door-to-door waste collection and recycling demonstrations. We were expected to do capacity building initiatives, and we were also to construct a community resource center The major stakeholders of this program was first and foremost the government of Kenya, because they are the ones who are doing the slum upgrading. We had the funding partner, mainly the UN Habitat. We were there ourselves as Maji and Ufanisi as the implementing agency. There were communities which were represented by several committees, which they had elected. We had service providers, for example, Kenya Power and Lightning, Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company, internet service providers who had their own infrastructure within the informal settlement. We had the project consultants made of engineers, architects, quantity surveyors, and we had the civil society organizations. Later, you could move to slide 15. In this, I want to talk about what was the role and responsibilities of Maji and Ufanisi as far as this program was concerned. And our role was very critical to the success of that project, which was was part of the larger Kenya Slum Upgrading program, aimed at improving the livelihoods of the poor, urban poor in Kibera. We led in community mobilization, ensuring active participation in the planning, design, and implementation phases of the program. We oversaw the construction of water and sanitation infrastructure, including communal water kiosks and latrines, a load and a capacity building activities in addressing Kibera critical challenges of the informal settlements. We also focused on capacity building, where we are training residents on issues of waste management and hygiene practices so that we ensured their sustainability. We had the approach of inclusivity, engaging marginalized groups, and establishing local governance structures, which fostered community ownership and long-term success in improving water and sanitation services. On slide number, still on slide number 15, we had some key principles that were guiding us as we got into engaging the community. And our purpose while we're engaging the community was to ensure that we empower them, providing them with the skills, knowledge, and resources necessary to make those informed decisions, as our lecturer has mentioned previously in the presentation. We wanted to get them to own. We wanted to develop ownership, where communities then would take charge of the development process to foster long-term sustainability. And thirdly, we wanted to have inclusivity within all the segments of the community in Kibera, particularly for men and for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. What did our community engagement entail while we went into this project? And we started with the consultations and the needs assessment. At the outset, we conducted extensive consultations with the Kibera residents to understand their needs and priorities and concerns. This was done through meetings, focus group discussions, one-on-one interviews, as well as general balances that would normally be conducted to create awareness by the local administration. And we thought that this was very important because the community in Kibera were the beneficiaries and therefore were very core to be consulted and make their voice heard and participate in all the stages of this big infrastructural development program. We of course acknowledge that the government structure was key in mobilizing the community and all the stakeholders within the community. And we also see the contribution of other actors like the service providers, the Nairobi Water Company, the United Nations, UN Habitat, and those other actors that were involved. As we were doing the consultation and the needs assessment, we ensured that all those actors were involved. And our aim was to gather the input from all those groups that we consulted on issues to do with water, sanitation, waste management, housing and mobility challenges, and ensuring that the interventions were aligned to the specific needs of the community. The consultation process also helped in identifying the most pressing issues. As Mr. Suji had mentioned earlier, that you could be thinking that the problem is water, and the community is asking you, who told you the problem is water? So we made sure that this process helped in identifying the most pressing issues, so that as we got into designing and planning and the implementation, we are basically trying to address the felt needs of the community that we were beneficiaries. We involved the community in the project planning and design. Once we had done the needs assessment, we engaged the residents in designing the infrastructural solutions that were practical, affordable, and culturally acceptable. For example, the local communities and residents contributed to decisions about the layout of the water kiosks, sanitation facilities.
Steve, we lost you. Hello, Steve.
Seems like we have lost him.
Yes.
I think it's a
don't know
network issue and he's sorting it out.
Okay.
Bear with us, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Afuna. In the meantime, let's think of questions and the comments. You can post them on the chat for our engagement with the presentation. The framework the theory that Dr. Rachel presented is, if you've done a unit in the participation, has been used a lot in understanding participation and the community engagement. And so you may have come across a scholar who had a different opinion about that framework, Armstein's theory of ladder. It's a framework that has been used a lot. So let's have questions on the chat, your own experiences. A number of us here are involved with the development agencies or practitioners. So let's have questions. Either you note them somewhere or you post them in the chat, so that when Steve comes back, as we wind up, we can try to engage intellectually with our speakers. Mr. Afula, I see it now. Mr. Afula. Yes, Mr. James. I think the presentation will be shared by James, but let's have questions. I've always wondered what are the constraints of this framework, especially in our. Is now ready? Thank you so much, Areko, for that question, and Dr. Patrick will be picking those questions and collating them together. What might be some practical lessons that you have learned with this theory? Armstein's, it is still widely applied. I think Mr. Kariuki is now ready. Mr. Kariuki, please continue. Mr. Kariuki, kindly continue.
Are you? Is the audience able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we are able to hear you. Thank you.
Oh, my apologies. I didn't know that I have lost my connection.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Steve, we can hear you now.
I think I lost my connection. Somehow the power went off and the internet, I lost the internet, but I'm back now. And
Go ahead.
we could go to, I was talking about the slide 15, Lecho. I think that's where I had reached.
Can you see slide 15,
yes,
which was
yes,
about the
I can see that. So I was saying that I actually had gone ahead and made this
Yeah,
presentation.
16,
But
16.
Yes.
It's slide 16, Rachel.
Oh, slide
yes,
16.
we can. Yes. Yeah, there.
So on slide 16, I was talking about the strategy and what community engagement entailed as far as this project is concerned. And I talked about we started with the consultation and the needs assessment.
Yes, Steve, continue. I think Ruth will meet the person. Thank you. Let's continue. Steve?
Meetings, focus group discussions, and one-on-one interviews. And then we also understood that we needed to engage this community from the onset because they were the main beneficiaries and they needed to be consulted. And while we were doing these consultations, we used the existing government structures to do the mobilization, community structures, and other stakeholders within the community. We also made sure that all other actors, for example, the service providers, whether it's Kenya Power and Lightning, because of the infrastructure, all the Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company, which also has a bit of infrastructure in that location, were involved. The next stage of community involvement, we talked about project planning and design. And please alert me, Lecho or Suji, just in case I get off, but I am hoping that I'll go on. So there is we did the needs assessment as the first step. And then the next step involved community members in the design of the phase, where we engage the residents in the designing of the infrastructure solutions that are practical, and they are affordable, and they are culturally acceptable. And I gave an example that local committees and residents contributed to the decisions about the layout of the water kiosks, sanitation facilities, the waste collection systems, and even the road and the drainage infrastructure. The community members participated in designing and the actual allocation of the space for where that infrastructure was going to be put in. It was agreed, and it is the community that gave the spaces. They moved, they relocated. And a very negotiated process. This ensured that the infrastructure that was built was not only technically feasible, but embraced the people who would ultimately use it. The third component of our community involvement entailed building the capacity of the community in the general and of course within the structures that they had formed. And we ensured the community, this ensured the community could take the ownership of the development. As Marginal Ufanisi, we facilitated various trainings to equip residents with the necessary skills to manage and maintain the new infrastructure. And the training areas included wastewater management practices, sanitation awareness, wastewater management, group dynamics, and financial literacy as some of the capacity building areas that we build to the community. And the other example is where we had artisans from the community, also facilitated in terms of the participating in the construction of these various infrastructures. The focus on building the local capacity helped to ensure that the residents were not just passive recipients of infrastructure, but were actively involved in the long-term sustainability of the project. In fact, it empowered them to manage their own services and reduce dependency on external aid, which they are still doing to date. If you go to Kibla, those facilities are still running, they are income generating, and therefore the dependency on external aid has also drastically reduced. Then the other thing, after we did the needs assessment, we built the capacity, we involved the community in the planning and designing. We then have now to form the local governance structures that would then be able to engage with this project and be able to deliver. So one of the critical steps in ensuring community ownership was the establishment of the local governance structures. And Maji worked with the residents to form committees, which were tasked with managing the water and sanitation and waste collection system. And one of the biggest, the most critical committee was the Settlement Executive Committee. This was the apex of all the other committees. And this was where most of the critical decisions and most of the issues that were thorny, especially on the relocation, on who is going to go where, were made. And therefore, this, I'll talk more about the Settlement Executive Committee, but this is one of the committees. We had the Road Relocation Committee, and we also had the facility management groups, where each facility that we did out, we were to do 7 facilities, and each facility had a group that was to manage it after we had done the actual construction and commissioning. The fifth aspect of the community engagement and involvement was the continuous feedback that we gave. And we are saying that the community involvement did not end with the design and implementation phase. Imagine Ufanisi ensured that there was a continuous feedback loop where residents were encouraged to provide on the project's progress and any challenges they encountered. This was done through regular meetings where residents were allowed to voice their opinions and which were used to make the necessary adjustments during the implementation. This was a very, very consultative process, and we ensured that at every stage of the implementation, we were receiving regular feedback from the community through the committee members, through different committees, and we are also feeding that feedback into the forward planning and the implementation of the program. And the dynamic feedback group fostered transparency. There was accountability. We were able to account for our actions. We were able also to hear from the community. And of course, this brought the issue of long-term communication. We had a very open communication where then the community felt informed and empowered to engage with the project. And of course, that I was able to address potential misunderstandings or conflicts that could have emerged early on. The interactive process also helped build the trust between the community and the project team and allow the resolution of issues in real time. For instance, residents raised concerns about location of water kiosks or sanitation facilities, and adjustments were made to improve. Number 6, we had the inclusive decision making, where this is a key element in community involvement, ensuring that all segments of the population including marginalized groups such as women, youth, and people with disabilities, had a voice in the decision-making process. We actually went beyond simply engaging leaders, but also intentionally made concerted efforts to include women and youth as well as people living with disabilities in the community meetings and discussions. So we made it like something that is mandatory. If the meeting doesn't have a certain number of women and youth and persons with disability, then there was no quorum. And therefore that ensured that subsequent meetings would get these marginalized groups involved. And this ensured that the solution that we came up with were equitable and benefited the entire community, not just specific groups. And of course, inclusivity ensured that benefits of development were shared equitably while addressing the needs of the most vulnerable groups and strengthening the community solidarity. And here, for example, women were often primarily responsible for water collection and sanitation in the households. And therefore, they played an active role in shaping the design of the water points and the latrines to meet their specific needs. So we had to include them to hear from the women particularly on how they think the water kiosks should be designed and how they think that even the sanitation facilities where the toilets were should also be put. And similarly, youth and people with disabilities were encouraged to contribute to the decisions related to services being offered. And then lastly, we had the community-driven monitoring and evaluation, where we involved the community in monitoring and evaluation, and the local residents were trained to participate. We developed some tools which could be used to collect data easily, and the data was used to monitor the functionality of the water sanitation facilities, ensuring the issues that were addressed promptly. And therefore, in terms of the community monitoring and evaluation of this program, during the implementation period and after, when now these facilities were running or they were using the resource center or the roads, then they were taken care of. I want to move to slide 17, Rachel. Here is these are just a description of the structures that I mentioned above. That we had 3 major structures that helped in the delivery of this program. We had the facility management groups. These are the groups which then were formed to be able to manage the sanitation facilities that were constructed under this program. We had another critical structure, which was the road relocation committee, which then dealt with issues of negotiations about the relocation of people from the space that the road was being designed to be, the walkways, the drainages, where the resource center is going to be. We also had this committee dealing with the community, negotiating with them, agreeing on where these people are going to move, because they had to, the other community members had to give room for the ones who are relocating for the project to be implemented. Then we had the settlement executive committee, which I said was the major committee. And this one was involved in matters community representation. This was the apex body that represented the community. It was the one dealing with the planning and decision making after picking the views from the other community, the other community members. Then the committee would come out to the planning forums where we were participating. The government was participating. UN Habitat was participating, and they could bring the issues. The key issues of project designs could be brought by this committee, and we could take them and hear them and adopt them where they were applicable. It was also the committee that dealt with advocacy and liaison in terms of the rights of and the interests of the slum dwellers, so that we did not at some point, as I think Rachel mentioned in her presentation, infringe on the rights of the slum dwellers as it were. So this is the committee that made sure that we are within the framework of the human rights, of the fictions and of the socio-economic and cultural rights of the slum dwellers. Then it was also the overall. This settlement executive committee was the overall. And this committee was made of members from different villages within Soweto East, because the slum upgrading project was in Soweto East, and it is made of several villages. So each village had a representation in the settlement executive committee. It was also the same committee that dealt with conflict resolution, including the sensitive issues of land ownership, relocation, resource allocation, issues of who works in the program in terms of the employment, and any other conflict that emerged out of the implementation of these projects. And of course, it adjudicated on issues of resource management, the resource management, and contributed towards monitoring and valuation. We could go to the road relocation, slide 19, Rachel.
Yes.
The road relocation committee, as I mentioned above, was the one that was doing the realignment of structures and other infrastructure to facilitate the implementation of the road construction. And for example, here we are talking about the power lines which are on the spaces that the road was going to be put, the water pipes infrastructure that are done by Nairobi Water, which needed to be relocated. And it also, as a committee, managed the effect of the relocation, making sure that if you have been relocated from the space that the road was going to be constructed, then where you have been told to move and somebody has offered you space, you are able to settle there properly and without any kind of challenge. So this was the work of the road relocation committee that we used to ensure that there was a smooth and a negotiated process. They were also giving back the feedback to the community in terms of for example, the designs, where the areas the road is going to pass, where the drainages are going to pass, so that the community was also kept involved in terms of how the road will be affected. Lastly, the committee was also the one doing the recruitment of workers, because this program also ensured that all the skilled and unskilled labor force was from within that locality of Soweto East, where the project was. So in terms of getting to know who in a location of who is going to be doing what when, it was the road relocation committee that facilitated that, of course, with our collaboration. Then let's go to slide number 20, Rachel.
Yes.
The last structure that we used for community involvement was the facility management groups. These are the groups that were formed and were responsible for overseeing the management, maintenance, and operation of the newly constructed WAS facilities. And they ensured the safety of the facility, the functionality, the maintenance, the OLM issues facility needed. And they also were to then take over and start learning, come up with a strategic plan and oversight for each specific facility. And here I'm talking about the 7 sanitation facilities that we constructed. So each facility had to come up with a strategic plan, program for maintenance and repair, a budget and financial management scheme, and of course, communication channels that they needed to establish. So all this was being done by the facility management groups, which then in their own ways formed committees we formed the groups as Maji and the program. Then the groups formed the committees that were managing the facilities. From there, we get into slides of you can see now there. These are the kind of the kiosks that were there before we came in. Those are the kind of toilets that were there before we intervened with the now host facilities. Go on, move on, lecture. Yeah, and here we are looking at the community appreciating and also the stakeholder engagement at all levels, the policymakers on one table, and also we are looking at some of the impacts, not the impacts, but the challenges that we faced when we went there. You can see now the groceries are actually being sold on the drainage. This is a photo of the Settlement Executive Committee engaging with the structure owners to be able to agree that they are going to give that space and on many other issues. Next. Lecture next. Yeah, here, this image shows some ladies doing the delivery of materials. As you are aware, within Kibra, a truck would bring materials to a particular spot. It can't go beyond a certain point. And therefore, we involved the community members to now pick the materials, if it is ballast, or if it is sand, or if they are building stones, to bring them to the specific area where they were required. So those are the images that you're seeing there. You can see the women there and also the men doing the trenching of the water pipes that we are going to lay out. And go on, lecture. Next slide. Again, here there's also the same community involvement where we have the skilled labor. They're doing the trenching for the proposed water pipes. Here, these are the challenges that we faced on the ground. The hard rock structure, and that delayed the implementation of the program. Go on, lecture. Again, these are some of the challenges. You get into doing a septic tank. You are digging a hole for a septic tank, and then you find that there's a lot of seepage of water, and some of these places are backfills. So you find that you are trying to do something, and you realize that it was actually at a former dumping site. So again, that brought challenges. Next slide. Similar experience. These are images that I wanted to share with you so that you are able to see for yourself some of the issues that emerged. Here we have one. This image is a demolition going on. And some of these people you see on that photo are actually the structure owners. So they're actually witnessing their structures being demolished. But obviously they have agreed. And then the other next image there, you are seeing the actual construction of the sanitation facilities in the spaces that the communities have already given. So it's part of that process of community involvement. And here we are laying the sewage pipe. This is a sewer pipe for which we are putting for the facilities to be able to be connected to the sewer. Here again, we are looking at joint monitoring with the stakeholders, government officials, ourselves, and the community, just going to inspect the progress of the work. There is partially developed the road that I talked about being partially developed. And here it is on the next stage of it. Still going on, and there you have the photo of the finished road, and this is the road that for those of you who know Liara University, it is the road that gets from Bagathi Road, climbs that hill to past the Liara University and gets into the Kibera informal settlements. That's the specific road that I'm talking about. That's the resource center. It's already complete. It is just next to the road, and it is already in use, as you can see in that photo. Then finally, what were the impacts of our community involvement, particularly on policy? And we are saying that the success of this program contributed to influencing the policy, particularly during the Kenya constitutional review process. This issue of participation, we were able to demonstrate, the community in Kibra was able to present them a memoranda to the review commission, and also their views were taken into consideration when the Kenyan Constitution 2010 was drafted and enacted. We also contributed to the development of the current eviction guidelines. We now have some eviction guidelines which are humane and which are also taking into consideration the provisions within the current Kenyan Constitution about human rights and matters of housing and all those, the Bill of Rights. So we contributed that based on the experience from what we did within Kibra slum upgrading program. And then, of course, subsequent to that, the Kenya slum upgrading program also has evolved to what now we are looking at, the Affordable Housing Act, where now we are talking about affordable housing and how we are able to upgrade the current structures within Kibra and other informal settlements. And generally, it has become a national program. In conclusion, and through this program and this project was very successful, particularly through our efforts, as I have highlighted, and we owe it to the community involvement and participation that we put in place before the start and during the implementation of this project. And these lessons that we have gotten have shaped a lot of, as I mentioned above there, we have influenced a lot of policy, national, and even at the county level. We are continuing to participate in forums where we still share our experiences and share our experiences and ensure that at all stages of any community development program or processes, they are involved. So in conclusion, I want to tell the audience that this is a very, very successful program. In fact, before we got in, the government had tried to roll it out in Kibra for 2 years without any success. But when we came in and we brought in our experience in community participation and involvement, then the program was able to peak and to be successfully implemented. Thank you, and I hand it over to Suji.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. That was such a wonderful sharing of Kibera. Gentlemen and ladies in the audience, the challenge and the pain that we have now is that all those stories that Steve has so ably elucidated could well be down the drain other than the policies that they informed. Affordable housing did not start yesterday, as you can see. Started way, way back, even before the new constitution was ever in place. But now we are dealing with it, but we are dealing with it sometimes with ignorance because the documentation of the processes did not take place. And those are gaps that we are seeing the academia could really help us to fill in terms of, so what happened, so what happened, so what happened. There's something that Steve hasn't mentioned that often goes on in the slums. When we see the slum structures, you think that the residents own the structures. The structures are usually owned by powerful outsiders, including people in the media, people in the judiciary, people in the executive, who are the holders, what you'd call gatekeepers in development. And that can be really difficult because when you go in there and you're trying to set up an alternative solution for water supply, and yet the water kiosks are owned by a magistrate in town, then you can be sure that will be blocked at all levels. So the negotiations that need to happen are not just with the residents. The negotiations will involve other stakeholders outside. And if you don't do that, they will easily make sure that even if you went to court, the file will disappear and the project will never see light of day. So I just hope that this presentation has been able to raise to your mind some of those complexities that the slum presents. So I will want to ask our brother Patrick. I think you are the one who was going to help us with the Q&A. Then we can bring this to a close. Thank you. Thank you all.
So just before Patrick comes, thank you so much, the team, for the presentation, and thank you so much, Mr. Suji, for the final thought that we have thrown into the mix about tenure and other issues that you have brought in. And so I request the participants to just stay on. We will not be long, but I request you to just, this is the best part of this presentation, where you get to engage with the people who are actually doing development and get the responses. And so they may not have the right answers, but at least, first of all, I thank you, Rachel, and Onsuji, and Steve, for the audacity and the boldness to partner with St. Paul's University in these conversations, because as the academia, we have the opportunity to hear what you are doing outside there in that space. So thank you so very much. Rachel, and Dr. Rachel, you may consider being one of our supervisors. We have a lot of students here who you can help with the supervision for their master's, PhD. Currently, the current class, Dr. Rachel, we have over 26 students who have just joined us for Doctor of Philosophy Development Studies. I started in the United States. I've just returned from the United States. And that class in any university is a big, big, big class. Our master's class is equally big. So, Dr. Rachel, you may consider at some point just creating an opportunity to supervise and mentor students with us at St. Paul's University. So thank you very much. I know we have our librarian present, Madam Kibandi. I've seen Marianne. I've seen Professor Joga. I've seen other faculty members, Johnny Kanja present. Thank you so much, faculty members, for finding time to attend and engage and support this presentation. I was in the field a week ago with a doctoral student who is looking at water and the communities. And part of the paradox that that the students is grappling with is these are communities. I mean, Mr. Steve and Suji will know this. This is a community managed water arrangement. And so we have some households that were disconnected and they have gone without water for over 10 years, others 5 years. And so as we are doing our FGDs, and they're trying to say, what happened to the pipe that you connected? Because they connect the pipe themselves. 3 women said, hey, my neighbor just came and put off the pipes, and that's how I've not been able to restore the water. I'm still without water. So these were 3 women, and we were trying to understand the dynamics, because the water pipes are running through, and the neighbor, for some reasons, I think he feels people are trespassing. He pulled off the water pipes, and so we are still looking at that data. But so anyway, so welcome. Let us now engage. I need to see many questions, and I need to see many people participating, especially the theoretical framework that Dr. Rachel laid in front. Amstein is a popular scholar. He's almost the father of theory of participation. But what are the controversies? What are the gaps? And what are the experiences from this team that we can engage? As I say, Patrick, come on board. You can take a bunch of questions, maybe 3 or 4, and then the team responds. Then you go to the next one. And I would like to see, please engage. I suspect there's an opportunity for 1 PhD research in this area. I suspect there's an opportunity for for 3 master students to go in this project. Usually in development space, we like you to look for an opportunity like this one and contribute. When I was doing my PhD, of course, I was still in Arizona State, but I did a lot of work for over 3 years or 4 years in Nyalenda, Kisumu. You can read my publications. Almost a similar model like this. I was interrogating what we call the delegated model of providing water in the slums. And I spent quite a big deal of, I later told my committee in the US, hey, I'm tired of flying to Kisumu. Let me now finish this thing and just move on to the next step. But what I'm trying to say is, for those who are looking for topics, for those who are looking for research topics, don't look for this theoretical thing that has no relevance to communities. As you're listening to these conversations, this is an opportunity where you can engage on data that benefits the community, the agency, the government, and even the academia. Great, great, great opportunity. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Director, for the candid narrative and comments that has followed that classical presentation. Now, to take care of time and, of course, bring on board a number of, let's say, the questions or issues that presumably may require certain output or other input, and probably we could carry along with us. A number of, let's say, reactions in terms of questions had been forwarded to the K. Watson and Ufanisi team in terms of, let's say, their project or rather the country's project that presumably has seen a good day of the light. Now, a number of questions have risen, especially from our listeners and scholars and participants. And from Ariko is really concerned on the level at which the engagement of the community takes place and whether this level is ideal for the equity in participation and whether that level creates an ideal platform for the consideration of the dynamic ideas. In addition to that, Ariko also asked, allow me, I'll just give a summary of this question so that the reactions would come at once. In addition, Ariko also says that community interventions are really questionable, given that they don't have a stake in terms of, let's say, resource support. So is this engagement, or rather does this engagement have any relevant input strength? And besides that, is there any communication in terms of, let's say, the input or the value of the input of the community? One. And besides that, Mr. Wafula also has talked about this learning and of course relearning process, which probably appears to be so much extensive and maybe before the ordinary community members in such a setup might be really a nightmare. And finally, he also talks of the ideas of the project stalling after a short period and the reason for such kind of, let's say, results. Then finally, Mr. Vundi also speaks of the participation and the strength of the participation, given the fact that the sources of finances are from different, let's say, level and from different, let's say, sources. Then how come that, or rather, is there a possibility of, let's say, bringing on board the art of, let's say, the community's participation and community's need being brought on board so that it can lead to a better, let's say, result, given that the question of sustainability remains a nightmare. Now that, of course, is concluded by Gadoni, who talked of, let's say, the possibility of research fatigue, given the murky components of the work that was being done with the water, the waste, the road, and so many other, let's say, micro projects within the larger projects. So maybe a better enlightenment can be brought forward. But besides that, my personal question, I'm really concerned because in the opening remark, we are talking of the theory and the practice of community engagement, a lesson from Kibera Slums Upgrading projects. Now, when we are coming on these CROs, the theory and practice of community engagement, and it basically implies that we have to bring the community within the slums on board. But then at the closing remark, we are getting the presenters telling us that the ownership of the assets within the community or within that particular community don't live within the community. Could it be a question of, by onstart, dealing with the wrong people, the wrong participants who do not have the heart and who do not have actually the connection and the touch of the slum and the slum assets in the area? So all along we are talking of, let's say, the community who live there, but they don't own any property. So from the word go, we are engaging people who really do not have a concern. We are not engaging wrong people, which basically implies that in the long run, we are not going to remain sustainable. The second aspect, you have talked of, let's say, so much which has been poured into the project. But this particular project and the project handlers are really not coming out to tell us something about the philanthropic aspect, the component of, let's say, the community philanthropy, where people come together in terms of having their resources as well. Because, I mean, the project handlers could not tell us, or rather cannot just convince us that this community is assetless in terms of anything, and therefore support mechanisms, support systems must be external or must come from the external sources, which implies that at the end of the day, the community belongs to the external resource owners other than the internal people who have that. And when they talk of sustainability, if you have brought the resources from the external source, does it mean that you will continue supplying the resources for the sustainability of these activities? Because resources are involved. So the need of involving philanthropic resources, which can help create more balanced power dynamics and challenge traditional donation beneficiaries. And it can also help people and society as a whole over an extended period of time. Community philanthropy is a real issue. Sorry, I had much, but then let's move on from there. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mr. Omeno.
Thank you, Patrick. I like that those questions come, and they're coming fast and furious, as they say. There are no simple answers to development generally, and development in the slums particularly. And for the reasons that you've mentioned, that sometimes it's easy to misshoot your interventions. I don't know who wants to go first amongst my two experts, but those are really issues. As you engage, you need to be knowing, so who exactly should I be engaging, and what stake do they have in the development of this space? Steve or Rachel, one of you can take the floor.
Thank you. In this case, I will start. Thank you very much for all the questions and all the reflections, because a lot of exciting questions were raised. First of all, I would like to say, by answering Wundo Eduardo, was that, can we talk of participation when in practice the financiers are more influential in defining development agenda? No, in this case, we cannot talk about like community participation or community planning, because it's not partnership. So we can talk about community-led planning when the affected community has real power in order to affect the direction of the development. So if I'm a donor and I say that, hey guys, I will help you and I will build you new homes. In this case, me, the power holder, the decision maker, decided what the problem is and decided the solution as well, so that you will get new homes, I will build you houses. And then I ask the community, what do you want? Which colors should the house be painted? In this case, I give them power. However, as I decided, I defined the problems and I elaborated the solution. So the community didn't have genuine effect or genuine power in the decision-making process. In this case, we cannot talk about partnership. Consequently, we cannot talk about participatory planning, and we didn't have enough time for it. However, if we just think about the different steps project has in a strategic framework, strategic planning framework, it can be said that we can talk about genuine participation or community-led planning when the community is part of the developmental process at the very beginning. So at the evaluation and the information collection part. And a lot of difficulties are stemming from the logic of the international development system itself, because and that's a very unfortunate thing, and that has very negative effects on the beneficiaries of the developmental projects, because if you think about it, donors give money so that they can see results. And consequently, when a charity organization, for example, applies for a tender in order to get money to help on the field, during that process, that charity organization needs to outline the results that they anticipate throughout the implementation. So they have to define the problems, the solutions, and the effects they wait from the implementation of the program. However, if you think about it, participatory planning is when a community tells you what the problem is and what the solution will be. So participatory planning in most of the cases cannot fit into this financial logic of the international development structure. So consequently, the affected community won't get a free hand to decide genuinely what the problem and the solution should be. So most of the problems regarding participation is stemming from the bad logic of international development. However, just to mention a good example, a good Kenyan example, which was actually the base of CANSAP. It was in Kitale around 2004, and the program's name or program's title was Building in Partnership Participatory Urban Planning, so BIPPAP, Building in Partnership Participatory Urban Planning. So if you're interested in a good example when a donor-found program was taking place that has genuine participatory planning in it, I would recommend you to check out that program. And thank you.
Okay, Steve.
Thank you, Rachel.
Steve, go ahead.
Yes, I want to also emphasize about the donor angle of development for planning, and this particular program that we had in Kibra. Before we came on board, the government of Kenya and UN Habitat had tried to initiate this intervention in Kibra and failed for 2 consecutive years. And when we came on board, because it was after a result of several failed forced starts, we were able to clearly identify that from the design stage where this program was designed, issues of community participation were not factored in or even considered. And therefore, the government thought they owned the land in Kibra. The UN Habitat thought they understood issues of habitat and the challenges, and they came together, designed a program, and wanted to roll it out in Kibra. So they tried that for 2 years. It was not possible. And therefore, they thought they could bring in another actor now from the civil society to be able to come in and contribute, and particularly on that aspect of community participatory planning with the community. So one of the things that when we came in did was to go back to the drawing board and factor in both in terms of resources and time to be able to engage the communities before any infrastructural development work could start. And therefore, yes, I agree in terms of international development, we have always not considered some of these things, but this program came on board, and we were able to convince both the government and the UN body that it is very, very essential we have community participating. And we are able to demonstrate the success of that involvement of the community because of the success of the implementation. Though it took time, initially this was a 2-year program, but it took almost 5 years to be able to be implemented because of the issues that are very critical and they needed to be considered before any actual infrastructural development could commence. Now, in terms of the community philanthropy and whether they have something to bring on board, yes, they do, and yes, they did. A lot of contribution was done in terms of forming groups that would ensure security of the materials. You know, Kibra itself is an informal settlement, and therefore, if you bring construction materials, most likely, if you don't take care of that, then you find that either it has gone, disappeared, or something has happened, and therefore we had the community themselves taking ownership and contributing in terms of security of the materials, security of the people who are outside the settlement, and that they contributed in kind. And therefore, they did make their own contribution towards the program. So not just as a receiver of the support, but they also made a lot of contribution. The other thing, of course, for this program is those persons that were relocated from where the infrastructure was to be put, they were not compensated to go and build those houses. The community pooled resources to ensure that they accommodated those of their own who were relocated from the space that were occupying. So therefore, there was a contribution in terms of ensuring that they accommodate the people who are incoming, and also support them in terms of construction of the structures that they are going to start occupying. So that we considered as a very huge contribution from the community itself. The fact that they were able to, first of all, seed space for the people who have been relocated, and then assist them in construction of the new structures that they are going to be staying in. That was a huge contribution because this program did not take care of that in terms of the budget allocations. I want to talk about sustainability and whether these projects are still there or whether they have been sustainable. And I can tell you, yes, these were 7 facilities. We now have 13 facilities that are still going on because the model of sustainability that we gave and we introduced in Kibra during that time is the pay-per-use model, where the users of those facilities or the services that are offered by those facilities pay to use the facility. And that income, the revenue that is generated out of that, and it's able to take care of the operational costs, and the small margin of profit is accumulated. They have formed cooperatives. Some of them, I think out of the 13, 8 of them have even been able to buy land and relocate their members. The members, we talked about the facility group members, they have been able to buy land and allocate that right to the members. So, and then the facilities are still going on even as we speak. In fact, they were not even affected by the previous slum upgrading project under the previous administration. The ones that were put in by the previous administration, because it was a government project, They came in, they were very good, very glad, but they are no longer functional as we speak. But these facilities that we did are still functional up to now. And therefore, we could talk of them as also as a success issue, of a success story. We don't have any of them having stalled. We did have initial challenges, especially with the levels of the sewer, where the sewer was being put and where the facilities were. Some of them are upstream, others were downstream. But we ended up solving those challenges from an engineering point of view. Those which could not use the sewer, they still use the septic tanks, and they're still functioning even as we speak. We talked about the people who own the structures being involved and the communities not owning. The beneficiaries, so to speak, are not owning. And during this process of community engagement, it is when it was realized that actually the people who are the structure owners may not necessarily be the one who are the occupiers, or rather people who are staying there on rent. And therefore, if you are going to put in structures there, you are basically dealing with the wrong people. But that was resolved because at the end of the day, the land in Kibra is government land as we know it. And therefore, the government was also able to intervene and say, okay, you've been the structure owners up to this point, but now we are dealing with the community who are the people who stay here and are the beneficiaries. And therefore, you have to cede whatever you call ownership. And then the people who are occupying, the communities who are left. And now whatever came out of the program in terms of facilities is now benefiting the communities and not the structure owners.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve, for that elaborate and fairly concise approach towards the team concern or the listeners' concern. As the academic community, we really had a lot and so much, but I think it is due to, on account of time constraints, and we really request some other future meetings, connections, and some fact finding, because in the process we have noted quite a number of, let's say, academic gaps and maybe areas that we really need to put our heads together. I hope with those many, of course, facts on ground, we really have some time, let's say, also to go through your good narratives and learn a lot in that process. Now, on that account, I would wish to get back to a director, maybe for a further direction. So, Dr. Mwasia, if you're around, please, you may just...
Thank you so much, Dr. Rachel, Mr. Suji, and Mr. Steve, for that clarification. I'm actually getting curious about the project, and we are going to engage. Those who are looking for master's project, PhD project, let us engage. I'm beginning to get curious about this project, indeed, especially like the water. Is water delivered by Nairobi Water or whatever, or is it a private company that delivers the water? Just curious.
You have a mixture of both, Dr. Ali. We have the Nairobi Water Company with the last mile. There's what they call the last mile program. It's delivery. And then those facilities have what we call community meters. So they are normally given water at a concessional rate, and then they're able to sell.
Okay.
Yes.
And so each community can do their own pricing, or they are all doing the same pricing for 20-liter jerrycan?
They are basically detected by the market forces. Sometimes even when during the rationing, the prices goes up, but generally you can find that the prices are more homogeneous, though they are not dictating to one another, but the market factors normally would dictate to them.
And so do they have storage facilities so that they meet the intermittent fallbacks?
Yes, that was part of the project. We had to put up overhead tanks And then when the water is flowing from the tap directly from the Nairobi Water Company, yes, they do that. When they don't, then they have their own storages. And even when they don't, then they buy from the private water abusers, and then they fill in and then they sell.
So, colleagues, I've done research on water since 1993. So, if you're looking for research project, there is a big thesis down right there. Eduardo, could you kindly unmute and from Angola capital, give a vote of thanks. Eduardo. Are you able to unmute and give a vote of thanks, Eduardo? Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Omeno, Dr. Rachel. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, and Steve Kariuki. Definitely, this presentation has been very informative. I've learned a lot because water is my area of interest in my PhD research proposal. And apart from that, the department that I lead in church, Community Development Department, we have done also some interventions on water. So hearing this success story from Kibera is very encouraging. We hope that this partnership will continue with SPU. We will have students doing research on your project and other things that can help contribute for the development of our communities. So thank you very much. We hope that this is not the end. The journey is continuous. Thank you.
Thank you so much. They have other 3 or so presentations coming. So let's continue engaging with this beautiful, great team that is doing amazing work in Kenya. John Kanja, can I invite you to do a closing prayer for us? Thank you so much, Dr. Rachel, Mr. Suji, Stephen Kariuki. I am grateful for your boldness to just engage the academy and bring this other side of what practically happens in the development space. We appreciate the partnership. I know will be setting an MOU. We are looking forward to your visit in June and have a cup of coffee here at St. Paul's University. We appreciate this wonderfully. Mr. Kanja, please.
Thank you, Dr. Let us pray. We thank you, Almighty and everlasting Father, for the very, very rich learning experience that you've had in this on this platform. We thank you for our speakers. We thank you for every contribution. We thank you, Almighty God, even for the ability to do such research and to bring such transformation. And we do pray that, Almighty God, it may not end here, but that this work will continue and bring a full transformation, not only upon our nation, but also upon the continent of Africa. We bless you, Lord, and we honor your name. And we pray that, Lord, as we depart to other areas of responsibility, that your presence may continue with us. We bless you and we honor you. It is in Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Amen. Thank you.
During this meeting, we appreciate the time we took to this webinar. Thank you. Thank you. Keep looking at your emails, your websites. We have more presentations coming. Let's continue learning from these presentations. Thank you. Teresa Joroke, what is the question? Teresa?